Welcome to Rav's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd. This is a podcast for the Mohawk advertising program in Hamilton, Ontario, and advertising students all over the world. I will talk today with 2015's Mohawk former student in the advertising program, Corey Hansen, about his experience at Saatchi Saatchi and Great Canada, besides being an entrepreneurship and creative director now at Paid. It was a very interesting conversation with Cory and a lot of tips and hints for creative students. Besides that, I wanted to remember that we are available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, besides Audible and other podcast software, so it's very easy to find us in any of those platforms. Follow us, please, and keep in touch. There's 3 more episodes to go after this one. Thank you so much, and here we go, Corey Hansen. Welcome to Rav's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd. I have a pleasure today to have Corey Hansen, creative director at Paid, and amazing copywriter also, to have a class of 2016. Am I correct?
2016, yeah.
2016, yes. To share his experiences, his career, and insights, and as always, tips and hints for the students in the end. And he had to survive an hour of Brazilian accent here. And my mishaps in English. That's what I say always when I meet with copywriters, because I'm nervous because you guys are so good with the language. Anyway, we're going to start this and saying Cory was one of the most successful students we had in the industry. And right now, he just shared me some of his new plans, and we're going to talk about that and end of this interview and this conversation. So welcome.
Well, happy to be here. Happy to hopefully inspire some young minds and some young creatives.
Good stuff. Amazing. I want to get you to start, Cory. Remember this stage, we're in February 2022. I want to get you to this stage in 2016 when you were about to leave for your internship. How hard it was to get internship? How was that battle and uncertainty of finishing your program and need to go to work?
It was terrifying. I think in February I was getting to a much better spot because I was able to land my internship at Saatchi Saatchi before we went to break around Christmas. So I went into the second semester feeling pretty confident in myself and feeling okay about where I was at. But, and that was part of the process of landing my internship. I went to portfolio nights to Saatchi Saatchi. I went to Leo Burnett, Sid Lee, etc., and kind of went all over the city and met creative directors where I could. I was one of the few lucky ones that was able to kind of pick where I wanted to go. And for me, it came down to what the conversations I was having with the creative directors and what I was kind of feeling at the agency. So, for example, I had an offer at Leo Burnett, which was amazing. I was sitting in the office of the great Judy John, and she was talking to me and my partner at the time. Vice versa, a few weeks before, I was sitting with Brian Shepard at Saatchi Saatchi, and he's this newfie guy who loves to tell stories, and it just seemed like a better fit. It seemed like a better opportunity for me to learn as a young writer, learning from an actual creative director or a copywriter. But also, it was a smaller shop, which I felt gave me the opportunity to really spread my wings and really show the people what I could actually do. Versus when I had the opportunity at Leo Burnett, I felt that for me, who is a loud person and really likes to show my work, it just wasn't the perfect fit for me. Saying that, I know tons of people that have gone to Leo Burnett or the bigger shops right off the get-go and have succeeded incredibly. So it's all about who you are, what feels best for you. And I was actually able to make that decision right before the last day of school before Christmas. I got my papers signed with Saatchi Saatchi, And so I came into the February semester, the January-February semester, feeling good, but this gut instinct of what's next, I had no clue.
Interesting to hear about your interviews and think that you can decide what in the conversation made you have that perception of, I think this is, I have more empathy with this Saatchi instead of Leo.
It's funny because for me, I think it comes down to who you are. It really, really does. For me, I come from a small town. People are just simple, and that's the kind of the world I grew up in. And I felt Leo Burnett was very big and flashy and showy, and they deserve to be. They have some of the best clients in the city or in the country, even in the world. They have some of the best talent in the city. They're fantastic. They were just seemed It just didn't feel right for me to be that big and that showy right from the get-go. Versus when I went to Saatchi and Saatchi, it seemed more, I don't say this disrespectfully to anyone at Saatchi, but it seemed more blue collar. It seemed more, let's get to work and let's, grind it out and see what we can do. When I showed up there, that was the year that Sean and Rachel, they just won the Young Bloods and they won everything at the ADCC Awards. So everyone that was there was on fire too. So it just felt like everyone was willing to grind it out and willing to do the work. And it just kind of seemed to fit my lifestyle. And that means nothing against the people of Lee Burnett or anything like that. That's just what I felt.
I completely understand that. Yeah.
An 18-year-old who had no clue what I was doing in the world. And that's just kind of what I felt right from the get-go. And I kind of trusted my gut and went that direction.
Do you recommend this to the students?
No, I don't.
No?
No, I take what you can get at the beginning. No, truthfully, like I said, I was extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to make that decision. And, it was luck, truthfully, how I got into the fun. I'll tell you a quick little story about Saatchi and Saatchi.
Sure.
So my partner at the time was Kevin Gonzalez, was another guy that we graduated with at that point, who's my art director.
Yeah.
And he went and met Troy McGinnis at Extreme Group, I believe he was at the time, just to show him his portfolio. Him and I had this great portfolio together. So Troy ended up talking to Brian Shepard later down the line.
Wow.
Said, hey, I have these guys. Are you interested in talking to them? Blah, blah, blah. So long story short, I ended up talking to Brian, get the job, blah, blah, blah. But I never knew who Troy was. I had no clue who this guy. He passed my book along. But truthfully, my career started because of him and what he did to pass my book along to Brian Shepard. So 5 years later or so, I'm on a shoot in Chile. We're shooting a Toyota commercial down in Chile. And just so happens, I think he was at Cassette at the time. They were shooting down there at the same time, same production house. So we're having a party the night before, having a big barbecue. And I see Troy and I go up to him. I was like, hey, I just want to thank you. I owe you my career, basically, because you made the step to pass along a book of a young creative, which was, looking back, it wasn't a very good book anyways. But he just saw something in us and passed it along to Brian, which got us a career. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, just pass it along. Someone did that for me too. I did it for you. Now when young creatives come to you, pass that along as well. So it's just this ever-going cycle in the industry that really you just have to keep in the back of your mind to always keep passing along books. So like as a young creative, don't feel ashamed to give your book to someone because you never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah. That's very interesting to recognize that you never need to. You cannot let go that feeling that I was in that position one day, and have some kind of empathy with the young professional coming in to.
Exactly, and this is how I feel about the industry as a whole. But just the best creatives out there are the most humble creatives, and it comes down to remembering this stuff, passing things along like this, not being cocky about your work or anything like that. There's a little bit of swagger and a little bit of ego, and that's going to happen in any creative field. But remembering kind of where you started and where you came along and being humbled, nothing's more humbling then getting your work shut down. So you happen to be able to go through that. And I think that's something that Troy really taught me that day. And he has no clue that he left that much of an impact on me all these years later. But it's just one of those things you have to remember. And as young creatives coming through, one day they'll be in the shoes of a creative director and have to do that as well.
I don't think people realize how much those small gestures of networking and helping it out and giving a chance makes in a life of a person, especially a young professional coming in. So yeah,
Exactly.
I completely agree with you. Uh, I have a question for you before we going from Saatchi to your next step of your career.
Mm-hmm.
I had students coming in. It's not the first time when they receive an offer from a bigger agency. They stay there for a few weeks and then they say, "Oh, a smaller shop send me a proposal with much more money and benefits and everything. Should I take it? Shouldn't I take it? I would change in that." And then, what do you would say on that kind of situation?
So my perspective's really changed in the last little bit. Um, at first, and young in my career, I'd say stay at the big shop, invest in yourself, bet on yourself, and bet on the people around you to that you will advance your career further and get better briefs, better clients, more money, etc. Um, in my career, I did that at Saatchi and Saatchi. My internship was extended several times, and I was getting offers, but I kept betting on myself because I really loved Saatchi and I really loved what they had to offer me. And eventually, that paid out, and I got the contract and stayed there for several years. But it's really all on the student or the employee at this point. What is best for them? Are you going to be chasing money? And if you need the money, that's for sure an okay route to go. I don't think there's no bad decision. You're not going to be hurting yourself either way.
Hmm.
But if you are, you want to go very far in this career and you want to chase awards, or if you want to chase whatever it is, then maybe bet on yourself and take a little bit of a hit at the beginning at a bigger shop where you get those bigger opportunities, and you can get noticed more.
Hmm.
It really depends on the person and where they are at in their life and where they're at in their career and what they're truly striving for. At this point in my career, I was hungry. I was willing to put in the hours and willing to do whatever it took to get noticed. So that's why I stayed at a bigger shop. But if there is opportunity and amazing things at smaller shops as well. So
Good. Yeah, I think there you need to put in the student's shoe too to see how much their life is to be able to accommodate to that investment on their career. I don't know. It's a very tough question to ask.
it's very tough. It's such a personal question because every single person is so different on what they want out of their career or out of their life.
Hmm.
So because one thing it took me a long time to realize is yes, it's your career, and yeah, there's things you have to do, but also life is moving along beside it. So really, where do you want both to go? And you have to make those decisions throughout your life.
Uh, Talking about this, uh, I remember the first, and I seen here in your book, the graveyard campaign for the Salvation Army. How was the process to create that campaign?
So the graveyard campaign in my book is all the stuff that has died, and it never made it to the light of day. But I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of where it went to.
Doesn't matter. It's
So
a,
exactly. So I left it there because I'm very proud of it. So the Salvation Army is this idea of the re-gift cards, and this is going back a few years. But insight was around there's millions and millions of dollars left of unused money on gift cards. So say you have a gift card with 17 cents on it, it sits in your wallet for 15 years and you forget about it. The idea was to create all these little micro savings, very much the same as Wealthsimple does with change on your account or any of the banks. It was to collect these micro savings that were just left over on gift cards and donating to the Salvation Army.
mm-hmm.
So this never made it far because the technology isn't there.
I can imagine that how complex will be the databases and
It's very complex, but what I'm very proud about that, and the reason I like to show it off is even though it didn't go anywhere, I love the fact that my partner and I at the time, we sat and we figured out how gift cards work. We figured out the entire technology, the entire ecosystem of gift cards, how they work, what they mean, who the companies are. I remember we cold called a company called X Card out of Toronto that runs half the gift cards in Canada. We cold
hmm.
called them to try to get a meeting. We were dealing with people for even somehow there's a whole department at the TTC where there's gift cards left on a TTC, they'll collect them and then they'll donate them at the end of the year. So we're trying to figure out how they were doing it. And, we went so far down the line to figure out the tech of all this stuff. And it didn't end up going anywhere because the technology wasn't there. But I just love that 2 weeks or so when an idea clicks and you're like, yes, this is the idea. And then you just you obsess over how it works and you figure the ins and outs of the entire industry that I had no clue about. And now I figure I'm a connoisseur of how gift cards work because I've dug so deep. And as a creative, what you have to be is an expert in everything. And I don't mean to sound douchey, but you have to learn other people's worlds. You have to learn other people's things to understand and how to create good products.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I
very
think
proud of that one.
I think I saw. It's an amazing idea, and I think one time I don't know if it was The Economist or New York Times, an article that during the lifetime of a person you get an amount of $1,000 of unused stuff from cards. There's a
Exactly.
specific.
I'm just
It's
reminding
an,
myself here. Over $41 billion worldwide is left unused on gift cards. $41 billion.
oh my god.
Yeah. So I remember just like stumbling upon that thought and being like, why? Like, why isn't there a way to? And now I understand why. But
Okay,
so we went in. Yeah.
so this goes into a deeper conversation that uh, of the conversation about the cards because yeah, what happened with the cards is it's just money that goes there with them, and I don't know. As I said, it's a longer conversation about the cards, and I
Hmm.
think you made an amazing campaign based on your idea.
Yeah, and
Really
I'm
like it.
really proud of it. We made a nice piece out of it. I love talking about it. Unfortunately, it didn't ever run. It never became a thing. Um, that's why it belongs in my graveyard.
Sometimes the graveyard has the best stuff.
It's true. There's a couple pieces in there I forgot about,
Yeah,
and yeah, just the way it goes.
I want to talk about your piece for the Young Lions
Okay.
now. How was that thing? Can you explain to the listeners, for the students, how was that campaign and what it's all about? I will give your website in the end, but just give a brief explanation.
I'm just have to refresh myself. Which year are you talking about? The print piece?
2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yes, Young Lions, wonderful competition. I'll tell anyone to go into it. It really teaches a lot about yourself and your partner.
Hmm.
So you have 24 hours in print and everything, and then if you're going to the film, there's 48 hours. You have 24 hours. They give you the brief, and the briefs are very complicated. They start with a very broad, high level conversational and then bring it down to this single thought that's very, very difficult to crack. So the first year we did it was probably 2015. I can't remember off by heart, 2016. And we spent all night long fighting, my partner Oscar and I, fighting about what should we write. And, I had a nap, he had a nap, and we kept going. We went till about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
And we got nothing that year. Nothing. So then the next year we're like, all right, listen, let's just we just put too much pressure on ourselves to succeed that year, and we didn't let our freedom really kind of go where it needed to go. Take what you want from the brief because it's not a real brief. You can do what you want. Expand on it where you want to. It's an award show. It's not an actual client, so you don't have to hit all the things in the brief.
Yes.
So the next year, we relaxed a little bit. I think we got shortlisted. The next year, we decided to go and film because we were just really enjoying film at the point. We did. I don't think it's on the site, but it's a piece that it's really controversial and very provocative. It was we ended up shooting my old creative director Joel Arbe's daughter, and it was about
How was the client and what was the idea?
the client was about it was very controversial of us, and I
No
realized
problem.
that.
Go
So
ahead.
it was about women going to school in other countries. Like they weren't getting the proper resources to go to school and whatnot, and it was just for a charity that was trying to build schools and give women better education in poorer countries. So you could go the route of, happy go lucky, and I know the one that won. It was like A is for a very successful woman's name. B is for a very successful woman's name. Like O was for Oprah, like, and they went through the alphabet and they had a little girl sing, and it was a beautiful film, really impactful. We went the dark route, and I don't think we were rewarded for going the dark route because we had, this little girl, and we didn't tell her what we were doing, but it looked like she was getting ready for school, putting her pigtails on, had a kilt on, so it looked like she was going to school. But then at the end of the ad, the 30-second spot, about 20 seconds in, she closes her door and she goes onto a webcamming site for, a cam girl type
I
site.
see.
And she said, "Hey guys, blah blah blah," and she was 9, 10 years old.
My God.
So the idea was, who would our women have to become if they weren't educated and if they didn't have the same schooling that they get now? And it was the idea of like, women in these other countries, they have to go into prostitution or they have to sell their body or whatever to make money to live. And we were trying to bring that idea home and really hit home. And I thought it was one of the most provocative and beautiful pieces of film I've ever created. Our friend Biko shot it with us, who's at Gray. And I just think for a competition like this, we went way too far for what they were looking for happy go lucky, and we went dark. I'm very proud of it, but it didn't reward us. So then finally we'll get to the final year where I did get a silver.
Cool.
And so we said, no, we're going print. We're coming to work. We're going to just enjoy ourselves. We went for beers. We went for a nice lunch, and we just shot the shit for an hour or two. First idea came into our head. We made it. We're like, I don't know if this is good. We did that 2 or 3 times, made 4 or 5 different ads that we thought were funny and good. As long as we were happy with the work, we didn't care. And and we entered it. We ended up getting silver. But that's what I learned from that experience. It's just like sometimes you just gotta be free and just take away all the pressure upon yourself, like I had the previous 3 years. And it was just like, hey, let's have a good time. Let's enjoy what the hell we're doing here, and we're making ads. It's fun. So that was the year that we ended up doing really well for ourselves.
How was that ad that got silver? Okay.
So that ad itself was it was about the trees. So the idea was, our climate deforestation. I can't remember exactly what the brief is, but it was a network of climate change network.ca or whatever. So our idea that actually ended up going was our very first idea.
Climateactionnetwork.ca.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, that's it.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're like, well, what do trees look like? We're like, well, so we looked at a bunch of different angles of trees, and then we stumbled upon a shot of a crowd of people from the top down, like a bird's eye view of people. And if you zoom out far enough and you put a green filter on it, it looks like trees. So that itself is quite large, looks like a forest, and the closer you look, you realize it's a crowd of people. And the idea is, it's stupid simple, but it's really powerful. I felt it takes everyone to preserve our client. Like it's the first thought, but the way that we ended up getting to it and, executing it is really what came through on that one. I don't even remember what we lost to, but it was just, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the exercise, and it paid off.
It's pretty good. So definitely students, recommendation when you start your career to get into the Young Lions. You can do it until you're 30?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can 30, do it.
Yeah, and you can do, there's a business side, there's a print side, there's social and mobile, there's film, and I think there's a marketing side for people that work for like a client.
I see. Client side.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very nice.
And winners get to go to Cannes. Get to go to France for free.
Oh yeah.
I think. No, I lied.
Have you been there?
No, I never have. I was supposed to go last year or 2 years ago. And then the world shut down. So here we are. Yeah. So I never ended up going.
So you need to create another amazing campaign to go.
Yeah, and actually I will be going there this June, but not for advertising, funny enough, for vacation. But my partner at the time, we had work in, and this is later in my career if we want to get to it, but my partner ended up going over top of me because we entered the puck into a category. It was a tech category, a new tech. So as you get shortlisted in a new tech category, you have to do a presentation to a panel of judges. They work at Google, Facebook, tech giants. So Oscar, my partner, who now works at San Francisco, DDB San Francisco, he was actually the person who developed the puck and created this entire thing. He's an art director, but he designed this thing. So he was sent over to give this presentation, and the lonely copywriter who did the rest of the work got stuck at home watching him on a webcam. And that's just the way it goes sometimes, and that's okay with me. I'm not bitter at all.
Well, I guarantee you'll be there with no time. But you're going to travel there anyway.
Yeah, I'm there anyways.
I want to say, so you just told me in the beginning, staying at Saatchi for 3 years, and extending and getting into working and doing all kind of work. Mm-hmm. What do you think will be changed? You changed to Gray, and I used to work at Gray too. When it was my first agency when I came to Canada.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
nice.
How was that change on in agency culture? And because before telling me that, how was that saying that at what time and say, I think it's time for me to
spread my wings. So I was at Saatchi for a long time, and they have one really major client, Toyota Canada, and we were doing some great work for them. They have other clients, but that was who we were really focusing on, which was amazing because through them I learned film. They do a lot of commercials, which is great. I got to fly over the world, shoot commercials, write commercials. It was fantastic. But I was there for 3 and a bit years, and I grew comfortable. And I came to work, I did my job, I got to do some amazing work, but I really found myself getting comfortable. And I'm not a type of person that likes to be fully comfortable all the time. I want to be on the edge. So, the same with my partner. So, just so happened we had some friends that were working at Gray that were looking for a new team. We had some conversations, blah, 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 and we moved over. The funny part is that we moved from Brian Shepard, who was the CD Saatchi, and Helen Pack, who was at the time the president of Gray Canada. They used to be partners, so it felt like I was moving from dad's house, like there was a divorce, and I was moving from dad's house to mom's house. So it was, and as I was telling Brian I was leaving, and he was the most supportive person in the world, and he was just so happy for us, and it was a real opportunity. So as we moved from Saatchi to Gray, it felt like we had this, we came into this shop, we had some awards under our belt, and felt like we had to prove ourselves, not just to the people in the agency to show that, hey, yeah, we're worth it. We are worth these briefs, and we're good dudes, and we want to hang out with you guys, and we want to make the agency better. But it almost felt like we needed to prove it to ourselves a little bit too, that like, hey, maybe we just struck lightning here a few times at Saatchi as we won these awards. Maybe we got lucky. So we had to prove it to ourselves too. So it was really, those first couple of months at Gray was like very stressful. Like I said, was talking about the Young Line stuff, we were putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to succeed. And it wasn't until we loosened up that we were able to crack some briefs and whatnot, which ended up working out for us. But the culture change wasn't all that different. It was the same size shop. It was a lot of creative people that really just want to do some work. And, there were some older people that were just really good at, they've been in the industry for a long time. They had lots to teach. And there were some younger people that were really biting nipping at ankles to really get briefs and stuff. And we were kind of the intermediate team in the middle. So that was kind of different for me. I wasn't a young guy anymore. So different in terms of the work, the pressure that we put on ourselves because I was no longer comfy. But the agency difference wasn't that of a change because they were the same size. They were the same kind of look and feel. It was the same. Similar. Yeah, so I stayed kind of at the same shop, just in a different location, if that makes any sense.
Sure. It's just the way of being a new group of people that you're not comfortable anymore. So that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to come in and be this hot shot, but like I said at the beginning, that's not me. I want to sit and have beers and shoot the shit. I don't want to fight about a brief. That's not what I do. So it was an odd feeling for me to be like, hey, this hot shot's coming in. This guy probably thinks he's the man, even though I just I'm just making ads. So yeah, but there was some, my time at Gray was really wonderful. There's a lot of really talented people there, and I learned lots from them. A couple Mohawk grads there, and even with the Helen Pack, who was president at the time, Joel Bay, and James Ainsley was the creative directors at the time, and just lots to learn from those seasoned vets who have come from all walks of life too. So there was lots to teach you and lots to learn from.
What is the work that you remember the most from Gray that you did there?
So there's lots actually. It was quite an interesting shop because there wasn't, I came from Saatchi, which had Toyota, which is this big monster who had so much work to do, and lots of good opportunity. But when it came to Gray, there was a lot of little clients that still produced a ton of work, and so it was different for me working on different brands. Like I said, I was comfy with cars. Then I had to move to tequila. Like, it's a very different world, and that's kind of advertisers. What we have to do is change shoes. Like, be experts, like I said before, be experts in everything. So my first project there was Day of Mourning, the silent streetcar, and the Alphabet, which was more of an art director's project. So my partner at the time, Oscars, had a blast with that one. It was very dark, very moody. So the idea was, it was Day of Mourning, WSIB. So, the day to mourn those people who never made it home from work was the idea. And through that very simple brief is let's honor those who don't make it home from work, which our strategy team, I would say, did a very wonderful job simplifying a very complex message. You're dealing with dead people. You're dealing with people that get injured in work. You're dealing with the WSIP, which a lot of people hate. It's government. It's just a strange client. But we were able to sneak something through on Day of Mourning, which was their one day of the year that people didn't hate on them for what they were doing. And this simple idea that our strategy team came up with was to honor those who do not make it home. And our minds, after rounds and rounds, ended up going to, what about the commute? Like, what's that? You're commuting to work, and then one day you don't commute home. So then we kind of thought about, what's that commute like? And then we ended up landing on this idea of like the last commute. So we ended up booking a streetcar out in TTC, wrapped it in black, put a big wreath on it, ran it during rush hours, and it was empty and no one could get on it. And that was to, honor those who never made the commute home. It was just a creepy, eerie sight of this black streetcar coming down. And then through that was one idea. That was the idea, and that was working. But in all credit to my partner, Oscar, he can take an idea and just say, whoa, there's a lot more to dig into here. And he pushed it even further by saying, there's these people that we can get pictures of, and I can recreate what their faces look like. Let's create an alphabet for them. So every single letter in the alphabet honored a different person. So
I remember that vividly.
Yeah, it was just, he just went so focused on let's create these as accurate as we can,
because we have the profiles of the people.
Yeah, and the dark, moody
transfer into the letters, isn't it?
Yeah, so we made an alphabet out of that they were able to download and use and whatever. But the art that went into it, and it had nothing to do with me. I will put my hand up and say this was all his idea. He just hyper focused on this one beautiful thought and brought it so much further than I ever intended it or ever thought it could go. And that's it comes down to, as we talk to the younger team or the younger people here, is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just got to let your partner go. Like you don't have to fight over everything, or you don't have to agree on everything. Sometimes you just got to trust that they know what they're doing, or they have a thought and they need to explore that thought. Even if that thought's going to be stupid, it's not going to work. They need to go explore that thought in their own head, and you have to give them that freedom to do so. And this is in the case where I was like, Oscar, I don't understand what you're talking about or what you're seeing. And then he brings back this letter P, which was just gorgeous. I was like, oh my God, I can write to this now. So sometimes you just gotta let them go. Anyway, so that's a campaign I'm very, very proud of there.
You just thought of something important, just to give a pause on the path that we're going through. How it is to if you don't sell yourself as a junior with a partner or everything, how it is to make that relationship with a partner work. What you need to have in the beginning to have that relationship grow when it comes to respect and the ideas and brainstorming, and have the kind of environment that is not abrasive. Even that I know sometimes is very intense. Yes,
it's intense. There's big egos at play. So my first partner, Kevin, who was a Mohawk graduate as well, him and I, we worked well together. We worked well together in school. And then when we got into industry, we were growing so quickly at different like we were growing into our own creatives that we were no longer gelling. And you could really feel that in the relationship. And then I got a new partner named Oscar, who to this date is one of my best friends. He's in my wedding party. He's in San Francisco. Him and I decided to break up. He decided to go down to the States. I wanted to stay in Canada, and that's okay. But the relationship there is pure respect. You have to trust that they know what they're doing, and sometimes they don't know what they're doing, and you can tell them they're idiots, and that's okay. What you have to remember, and it's tough when you're put into a partnership versus finding your own partnership. But you have to grow kind of as a unit, because you're not seen as a creative director as two individuals. They're never gonna. Your work is your work, and it's togetherness that brings it there. But what you have to remember is you're both just trying to make this the best work. No one's trying to sabotage work. They're just both doing what's best for that project or that particular thing. So, Oscar and I would fight and we would fight and we would fight over if it was black or if it was blue. And some nights we'd go home not saying words to each other, whatever, or we'd say terrible words to each other. The next morning we go out for coffee or whatever, we'd be fine. There was nothing to it, right? And like I said, he's one of my best friends in the world. But we always both knew when I was telling him that he was an idiot and that he should never art direct again, that I was telling him that because I wanted the best for the project. And he knew that I wasn't being mean to him for that reason, because it was for the sake, it wasn't never personal. It was always, we were just trying to make work better. So it's hard to find that line, especially with a new team, new creative. But if you can get to that sweet spot, that magical spot, it's like nothing that I've ever experienced with a partner.
And I think together with the mentorship you have and the indications of network, I think it's one of the important points to grow, isn't it, as a young professional?
Yeah, exactly. How to work as a partnership. You can be extremely talented, but be a terrible partner, and you might not make it as far as you can. You might not have the opportunity because you need to lean on each other often. And it's one of the few industries in the world where a partnership is that important. But it's something very unique about advertising, which I do adore. That you are a unit and you're seen as a unit, and that's that. If one person messes up, you're both getting in trouble. Simple as that.
When you come to that, let's go through. I want to talk a little bit before going to the most recent path of your career.
Yeah, sure.
How was those trips to Chile and different places to shoot commercials. Can you tell a little bit more? How is that part? You go there as a team. You'll work with all those aspects of, because you can make the decisions of the shooting and to be exactly like you want to. How's that process? Just to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go back to on my portfolio when you send it through. There's a bunch of RAV4 spots that we shot in 2017, and we went to Chile to shoot those. So those are big, important spots for the client. They're very important. So we write tons, right from the beginning, we're writing tons and tons and tons and tons of spots, 15-second spots that are kind of funny, kind of cheeky, trying to explain what a feature is. So gets sold through. And then we go through a director search. We're trying to find who the right director is, and that's a whole process on its own. Part of the process that I love. You're looking at commercials and you're trying to find the right director for the spot. The thing about hiring a director is that you're not hiring someone to do your job for you. You don't want to move their hand. Like as you're looking at a designer, you work with a designer to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. But you don't want to move their hand because that's the same kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you hire a director, you want them to bring their own personal flair, their own personal touch to the project itself, which I love that, because then you're even just expanding your team. And then in that case, it just so happened it was winter in Canada. We needed to shoot a summer commercial. We had one of the best producers in the city, per my opinion, Michelle Orlando. She said, we're going to shoot this in Chile. And then as a copywriter, worrying about the details of what is going to work for the spot. You're worrying about, after you have the director, what the clothing is going to be. You work with the art director on this kind of stuff. All the details of what the background's going to look like, what the art's going to look like. Is the dialogue good enough? What are the alts? Especially as a copywriter, I will always say this. If there's dialogue or anything like that, write 1,000 different lines. Because something that's funny on paper is normally not funny in real life. So you got to come up quickly with a solution. So don't bank on the joke that actually sold your client is going to be the one that lands. Always have backups. So you're doing stuff like that, and you're letting the professionals, you are the professional copywriter or art director or creative director. You're doing your job very, very well. You let the producers and stuff take care of the rest, the flights, the everything. And all that stuff that I have no clue about. And a good producer is worth their weight in gold. So we fly down there. We end up at this production house in downtown Chile. Everyone's so lovely. And our job, as soon as we landed, I think we had 15 minutes to enjoy the weather, to go into a casting studio where we're just looking at casting of people coming through and reading lines or just acting out commercials, and we had to decide on who's the best actor. And what's great is that when you go down there, or when I was down there at the time, I didn't have to worry about where my hotel was. I didn't have to worry about money. My job was to focus on making the best advertisement, and there was other people's job to make sure that everything else was taken care of. So it's such a well-oiled machine. That when you go to these places and you go on shoot, they'll always say this: it's location, not vacation. You're down there to work. You're down there to do your job to the best abilities you can, and focus on what your job is. Never worry about the rest of the stuff, because that's someone else's job, and that's for you to leave trust to other people. And it always comes down to trust.
I've been in Chile, Santiago, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
Oh,
the mountains are spectacular.
Mountains are incredible, but the interesting part about Chile is that the architecture is oddly close to Canada.
Yes.
That's why they like shooting down there. Production studios like shooting down there, is because the architecture is very much the same.
I think because of the weather, and because I think it's one of the most progressive countries in South America for sure. I guarantee you. Yeah, and nice, and extremely nice people.
Here's a good story about leaving your job up to someone else. So we were shooting downtown Santiago in a market one day, and we were shooting cars, so we were moving, and it was oddly quiet around us. I was like, okay, well, I guess they have it blocked off for whatever reason. I go home that night, I go to our hotel. Turns out there was a massive protest at the main building, the government building at the Sunny Square, around the corner from us. But our producers and everyone that we hired to do their jobs so well had it so blocked off for us that we were not bothered by it. We didn't even know that it was happening. It's because they did their job so well, and they let me focus on making sure that I would be the best it could be.
I see.
Yeah, it was just so wild. I was like, wait, I was 5 blocks away from that massive riot.
Do you have to? So, is there a kind of an agreement with Saatchi Chili to make this happen together, or you guys contact directly?
It was Saatchi Canada, Toyota Canada. We hired a company called Steam Productions. They, who were part of, I can't remember who they're part of. They went and worked with the production studio down there. The director and the other producers flew down there ahead of time before we even got there. It's all Canadian stuff down there. It's the same, if we're going to go shooting Australia, Europe, or whatever, if it's a Canadian project, it's Canadian all the way through.
And also the buildings and the people that you guys cast, there's such a personality into them. You guys think you guys did a great work.
Casting is one of the hardest things in the world, and that's what I always lean on a director for, because they see things that I don't. They are good at seeing things of like, oh, you see that little smile he did? I didn't tell him to do that. Like, there's just things like that it's amazing what they can see.
Yeah, I think this is hard too, because you don't know how much it is a good casting or something that you think it's good sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you end up getting there and they're not as good as what you thought, but you learn quick.
Well, now you are in here, and Corey, on almost 6 years on Saatchi and Gray, like the 5 years and a half on both. You went to be at Milestone Integrated Marketing.
Yep.
And midway through the pandemic, how was that thing?
So, yeah, like I said, my partner wanted to go to the States. I did not, so we decided to split up. I wanted to come back closer to my hometown and to work in a smaller shop where I could slow down and focus on other things in life.
What is your hometown?
Paris.
Paris,
yeah, just outside of him.
Beautiful city.
Exactly. I love it here, and I wanted to be here, and my fiance is from town. So, we decided, and that's when it comes, we talked a little bit before about like life and work. For me, it was, I really wanted to get my life going as well, not end my work going. That's not to say I was downgrading work, and I always had it in my head, like, oh, why am I going to go to a small shop outside of Toronto? I'm never going to get the work done. It's not going to be the same level of work. And, it's implanted in your head when you're a young kid that, like, it's only Toronto, but there's so much more out there, and I realized that very quickly. So I went and worked at Milestone Integrated, which is in Cambridge, Ontario, and they're an incredibly successful shop that, until last year or so, they really weren't on the radar of anyone in Canada, which was amazing because they had some great clients. We were working for Highliner Canada. We were working for Johnsonville Sausages, which was a ton of fun. They had some really fun clients. So I ended up working there for about a year and a bit. And starting during the pandemic, it was interesting because everyone kind of was from this area, so we all could like relate to the same kind of things, and I didn't have that ego that I was really facing in the city, and I felt a little bit more relaxed, I guess is what I could say. But the work and the amount they stressed on different things it really opened my eyes to other ideas. As their history was always design. They were a design shop to start. They were designing packaging for Johnsonville Sausages or packaged goods, and that core of design has never left what they do. So as a copywriter or a creative director, I came in and we were focusing on commercials and we were focusing on all the other aspects of advertising. But everything they did was so thoughtful when it came to design and the thoughts. Sorry, dog.
No problem.
Yeah, so it was so thoughtful, and you could really tell the impact of the agency was design, and they were focusing on that. But it really allowed me to spread my wings as a writer and do some cool commercials and some cool ads to let the designers do their job, and everything was just absolutely beautiful. So it was I was expecting for my work to go down, but it went beyond where I thought it could go.
What you're describing me is just extreme respect to the craft of their work. So it's
Extreme. And it's funny because when you think of, when I think of BBDO, the agency, I think of film. They do commercials very, very well. All the Skittles stuff and all the Mountain Dew stuff throughout the years. Beautiful craft on film.
Mhm.
And then you look at other shops that start as a design shop and they slowly morph into an advertising or integrated marketing shop. That same level of craft is always brought through what they do, and the heart of what the agency is really shines through in the work.
Mhm. From there, you get to be a creative director at Paid. Can you get to me on that transition to be from the writer as a creative director?
So Paid's interesting because I started that myself. It's my own
Sure.
company.
Okay.
So I've always been obsessed with tech, and as you can see in my portfolio, we do a lot of tech things. And my
Yes.
partner Oscar, that's what we do. So
By the way, I want to come back to your work also before the puck. Okay, so don't worry, we're coming back to that.
okay, yeah,
All
no
right.
problem. So anyway, so a few years ago, a friend of mine approached me with this. He was working in the student world, selling insurance. Like your Mohawk students will have insurance if they get hurt or sick or whatever, they're taken care of. He was working in that field, and through that, he was doing research on stressors of students. And his big thing was what he stumbled upon was school, finance, relationships are the big three stressors. School takes care of itself. The school, there's resources out there, tutoring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's relationships that kind of take care of themselves, but there is counseling and stuff available to students. When it comes to finance, there was nothing. There was banks offering you more money for higher interest rates. There was more credit cards, and there was OSAP. And no one was teaching students about any of this stuff. So him and I sat down for a couple of beers, and we just discovered this idea of why don't we bring microsaving and all this kind of stuff into the student realm so we can help students pay for their debt while they're in school. So we went through, and I was working on this on the side. It was a side hustle of mine for 2 years or 3 years. So I was at Ray and at Milestone. So nights and weekends I was working on that, which was really interesting. I was able to kind of create, but also focus on creating a product. I would finish work at 5:30, 6-ish, go have dinner, come back to my computer and work on this product. Since then, we have become bigger. We have about 10 employees now. And what we do is we help schools like Mohawk College, and I'm hoping working with Mohawk College very soon, of creating the student cards and putting the student cards on phones so they don't need to actually carry a student card. And on top of that, bake in all my savings stuff into the student card. So every time you use your student card, you get money back towards your pay. So I'm just trying to compress everything. But what that's led me to do is creative director is a very broad term for me right now. Is I'm a founder of a company, and I'm dealing with finance. I'm dealing with investors. I'm dealing with all this other stuff, which is brand new to me, and I love. As I was saying in the very beginning, I don't like being comfortable. So I love that I'm being forced into this different world, taking the same lessons and techniques and skills that I've learned in advertising and transfer it into this startup realm where I'm able to create something that I think that I really have a lot of passion for and want to create this beautiful thing. So that's where I'm at now. We're working on this product. It's funny, and you'll hear this from a lot of creative directors. As you become a creative director from a copywriter or art director, you stop creating as much and you start focusing on the direction part of things. And that's a hard thing to come to. I've last couple of days I've been in meetings or talking to people or whatever, dealing with finance. How do people get paid? And I feel like I've done nothing because I'm not sitting at my computer creating. I'm not designing a spread or writing a script or something. I'm not seeing. And I feel like a lot of creative directors, I've heard this from a lot of creative directors, it's hard to step away from I'm creating every day to I'm managing and creating on the side. That's a hard thing to learn.
But I don't know how it is. You need to manage teams of people creating under you, and you're not there doing the meet and greet anymore, and yeah, it is super necessary, and they probably this team's name need you to get a better path, but at the same time,
And it's
uh,
interesting because you want to teach and you want to, like you want to teach, but also I hire people or people that work under me, designers, art directors. I want them to bring their own flair. I want to be surprised every time I have a conversation with someone about their work. I don't,
mhm,
like we were talking before about the directors, I don't want to move their hand for them because what's the point of them?
mhm.
So, and it's a lesson I've learned from advertising for sure is, especially as a junior, is that yes, do what you're told. Like someone's going to tell you what to do, but still bring stuff, bring extra, bring your own flair to it because they're hiring you and for that creative vision, right? You're not just a robot, you are a creator, and that's what you do. You're creative.
Mhm. Well, let me get this straight. So that Salvation Arm card stuff, research in the beginning of your career, came back
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
actually help you create this
Yeah.
entrepreneurship
So
thing.
not directly, but
I
a
know,
lot of
but
it got me interested into how as I say in the research, it got me very interested in that part of the world and how money transfers from card to card and the encryption of things and security. And I learned a lot of that. And I'm dealing
Mhm.
with this every single day now, which is hilarious. You're totally right. I've never really thought about it that deeply, but it has led me into this techie world where I'm creating and I'm worrying about encryption of freaking gift cards.
yeah, that's an amazing part of it. I
I've never
matched
thought
the
about that
boat.
before. Yeah,
Yes,
it's funny.
I will get into before two campaigns that I wanted to get
Yeah, talk about them.
through you. I'm very happy that your entrepreneurship now, and it's still you doing the creative stuff, Corey. But
Thank you.
I want you to tell me one campaign that I saw so many commercials for it, the Pringles expansion pack.
So the Pringles expansion pack was another one of those ideas that what it doesn't really make sense, and so
That's exactly my reaction when I saw it
yeah,
on TV,
yeah. So
and that's the
so
reason it's great. I think because it's not. It
it
gives you
didn't
a
answer,
reaction.
and I'll tell you this, it didn't answer the brief at all. I'll tell you that for free. So the brief came down from New York, Gray, New York. They were creating the commercial that you've seen where they're stacking Pringles, which was a smart marketing maneuver of like, hey, if we have 36 flavors or whatever there may be, and you
Hmm.
stack this flavor on this flavor, you stack three together, you get a different flavor. And it was a very smart marketing technique. Gray New York took care of all the advertising to make the commercials, etc. As that campaign was coming to the end, they needed to find a new way to even express that even further. So through Gray, what we did, and we were kind of thinking ideas of, okay, how do we show the stacking thing,
Hmm.
whatever. And then we kind of stumbled upon this thing called the miracle berry, which I can't even pronounce the name. It's the Syncyphium decelliflum plant, whatever. So it's this pill or this powder that you eat, and it just changes your taste buds completely.
Hmm.
So things that are sour are now sweet, things that are sweet are now bitter, and then it just covers your tongue for a little bit of time, 15 minutes or so, and it just changes the flavor. So we're like, okay, it's another one of those things. We just went online and just kind of surfed the internet and just found random things, and we knew it didn't answer the brief of how do we sell more potato chips. We knew that was the case,
Hmm.
but we're just like, this is just too cool to give up. And very much like that Young Lion stuff, we were just like, well, this is just fun. Let's just do this. Um, so, anyways, what we ended up doing is because no one was like, well, how do we believe you that this is going to work? Like, we're like, I don't know. So we ordered a bunch of these pills off Amazon or Alibaba, I think, actually. And we paid for them ourselves to come over. And we got a coffee grinder. We grinded these beans up, these pills up, and we put them onto plain Pringles. And we filmed people eating them. So they would take the magic Pringle and they would eat it. And then we were like, okay, try the barbecue flavored Pringles. And the barbecue flavored Pringles tasted like dill pickle. Or we'd be like, oh, try the dill pickle Pringles, and they tasted like, I think someone said it tasted like soap. So it's just like a what the hell is going on kind of thing. So we created this flavor of Pringles that just changed every single flavor completely. So it was just kind of a fun thing to do, and we created them ourselves, and like we went upon our own dollar at some points to really make this and sell this on to Pringles. So the idea was, and then the fun part about this, and people can learn this eventually in their own time, but sometimes a really great idea, you just have to force an insight into. Sometimes the idea comes first and the thought comes later. And that's exactly what happens here. We came up with the idea, and we're like, this is cool. How do we sell potato chips with this? And we're like, oh, instead of saying you have 316 flavors, say you have 316,000 flavors, because when you eat this chip that we just created, it will change the flavors completely different. So anyways, really fun campaign, really enjoyed doing it. That was just truly just us messing around one day.
How it is to go off brief and how hard it is for the students who are listening. And what is hard for a team like you guys to present internally to the creative director, to present to another office like New York, or to present to the client directly?
Sometimes every product's different, but sometimes when you go off brief like this, the hardest thing to do is sell it internally, to sell it to your creative director, because you got to think about their day when it comes to this, and you really have to, it's interesting. You have to be very strategic when you present to your creative director. You have to think about their day. They're going through meetings. They're dealing with payroll over here. They're dealing with resourcing over here. They're having one talk about books over here with another team, talking to cars, this team, talking to whatever. And then you come in and say, hey, you only have half an hour with them, whatever it is. Hey, I know you asked us to do this, but we did this instead. It's gonna break their brain. So it's really sometimes very hard to sell these kind of off brief ideas internally. And what we kind of always found that worked was come up with a really, really great idea that answered the brief. That's your safety net. Come up with that. And then you say, hey, we also came up with this thing, which we think is so much better. And it's all on your sales. So they're like, okay, in their head, box check, they answered the brief with these 4 or 5 ideas that I like. Then you bring in this other idea that gets them excited. They see this. I remember we presented this to James Ainsley at Gray, and he's just like, this doesn't make any sense to me, but let's run with it. I like the idea. Like, I don't understand the science, but I trust you guys will figure it out. And it was actually almost like a prove it to me. I don't believe you guys that this is actually going to work. Prove it to me. That's why we went off and bought our own. He challenged us to bring a better idea coming through. So you have to be very strategic about how you bring these internally. And then it's tough. It was tough at Gray for sure, because Gray Canada, small, Gray New York, massive Goliath. So to bring ideas like that to the global creative directors at Pringles and present these ideas through, it's intimidating. But if you have your agency on your side, we had Gray Canada on our side, we had our president on our side, we're able to present that stuff and feel very confident. And if they like the idea, they are professionals, just the same way that James is a professional here. They're busy, but we presented it in such a way that they're like, oh, this is cool. Can you prove it to me? And then that's when we went off and made the film. So, yeah, that's that one.
Changing now to, I think it's the campaign that I found you receiving awards for, and I think it was a great product for the puck for diabetes. And I want you to explain to the listeners about that campaign before we go to the final part of our conversation, Corey.
Sure. So the puck was about a 5-year idea. Oscar and I had it when we were at Saatchi Saatchi. And wow. And we went through every single possible way. We were working on another project. I think we were working on a Toyota print piece. And then we had this idea about, hey, why don't we do this? I think one of us was at the bar drinking and we peed on the urinal. So anyways, the original idea is like, wouldn't it be amazing if there is a urinal puck that you pee on that changes color based off of your sugar levels to tell you if you have diabetes or not? In its simplest form, that's what it is. If the urinal puck would turn red, it'd be like, hey, there's a high chance you have something going on in your body. You should go get checked out. Green means, yeah, you should be okay. Nothing going on there. So we went through, like, it's what it is. It's very simple. We went through rounds and rounds, and we try to do it chemically. So this is what I'm saying. We had this idea, which is a very simple, pure idea. And we're like, how the hell did we do this? But we were obsessed with this idea. So we went and tried to figure it out. And we tried to figure out how to do it chemically. We talked to chemists at the University of Toronto. We talked to, everybody under the sun how to do like an actual puck, and it just wasn't going to be possible. So anyways, that we put the idea aside for years. And then we had a few downtime at Gray, and we're like, let's just do a little more digging on the puck, see if we can bring something out of it. And we figured out that we could do it with technology. We figured out kind of a way. We read a bunch of papers. We were reading PhD papers on how different technologies work, and we were surfing Harvard's backlogs and UCLA's backlogs and like things that were written to try to figure this out. And so we became scientists for a little bit. Anyways, so then it got well beyond my knowledge, that's for sure. And Oscar, who is a big tech guy, he loves building computers and stuff. He's like, I can build this thing myself. So we brought it to our creative directors again. We're strategic how we brought it to them. Try to get them on the right day and say, hey, we really believe in this. We think we can do it ourselves in-house. What do you think? And of course the answer was no. You can't do it in-house. Like, we don't believe you. Like, okay. So a lot more complaining, a lot more, come on, let us do this. They finally said, okay, fine. Here's $500 or whatever it was. Go do it. So it was, once again, a very much like, we don't believe you, prove it to us. So that's what we did. We went and ordered all the parts off of Amazon and eBay and Alibaba or whatever. And we sat there and built this thing. We were at night. We were working on stuff during the day, and then we sat and we made it out of wood at first. And Oscar was doing all the coding. I was soldering stuff, and eventually we made this puck or this device that was actually working. You put high sugar levels, so we figured out how to do it originally, mix water into sugar. I won't get into the details of how it works.
Sure.
It would just read your sugar levels in your pee. So it would say, hey, and it would turn green or red based off your glucose levels. So a lot of sugar, it would turn red. And then we had a sign on it that said, hey, if it's red, there's a good chance there's a lot of glucose in your body. We're not saying you have diabetes. We are not saying you have anything, but go get yourself checked out. It's not going to hurt you. Or it says green, hey, sugar levels are okay, move on. So what we ended up doing, the way we thought about it, we just wanted to make this originally. And once again, the idea came first, and we backed into this beautiful insight that I thought, and that's what we spent a lot of time crafting and figuring out was men they're too proud. They don't go get themselves checked out. They don't worry about diabetes. So we're like, we have to bring the test to men. So I know I've said this quite a few times that we had the idea before we had the insight, but sometimes that's just the way it works.
It was the reverse.
Yeah, and sometimes it just works. And then it was so we made this thing, and it was trying to find a client who would buy it. And so through the power of Gray, which was amazing, we reached out to Gray New York, who reached out to Gray Brazil, who reached out to Gray Argentina or whatever. And eventually, the Diabetes Foundation of Brazil, RAF, they ended up, we're like, yeah, we need something like this because it's even worse down here than it is in Canada. Like, there's a lot of people that have no clue what's going on in their bodies. So they created this, they helped us create it. So we made quite a few of them and sent them down and got their logo on it and whatnot. So we created this thing, hopefully changed some lives. And that's truly what I think advertising is the ability to, yes, we're making ads, we're selling toothpaste to people who brush their teeth every night. But on the other side of things, we are creating products and creating things that can actually change someone's life. And that's what I love about advertising.
I really think that kind of a creator, inventor kind of saying that can change life is something extremely important. And I think this reverse creation process that you're doing as a side project and in the end became real is really inspiring, Corey. It's super cool. It's something that I will always tell my students. I will tell you for sure.
It's just, if you believe in it, you just got to chase and do it and see, and you prove yourself wrong, or if it fails, we've talked about all the successes tonight. There's been so many products that Oscar and I had created when we were partners that died slow, painful deaths, and we were just not going to let go of it. But they died. But you know what? We had to go explore.
Part of the job.
Yeah, it is. 90% of the job is being told no, right?
Final part of this conversation, Corey, because I guarantee we could spend more easily 2 or 3 hours here. It's what is your fondest, your nicest memories from the years at Mohawk? What do you remember the most? Like one or two examples. So.
Well, it's funny because now that I'm dealing with schools every single day, and I was at Fanshawe College 2 days ago.
Okay.
The atmosphere when you walk into a college or a university is so inviting and so exciting. That's one of the things I miss, especially working at home all day, every day. There's such a creator's mentality when you walk into it, especially when I used to walk into the agency. I used to love going in there and just being like, today we're just going to throw shit at the wall and see what happens, see what sticks. And like, it was just like such a free environment. Everything felt very, very cool and fun. That's one thing. It's just the environment itself. I really do miss that quite a bit. And I felt that, it's funny you brought that up, because I felt that when I walked into Fanshawe the other day, and I was just at the student union for a meeting, but it just felt different to me than just going into an office where I work all day, every day. But, like little things like just finding a nook in the agency, or finding like going to the cafeteria or whatever and just working while having a coffee at Starbucks. Like, I love not really having a place to sit. And it's just that vibe I really miss. But I'm trying to think of like a few things in advertising specifically. There was a few nights, and there's one memory I have that's really powerful, I think. We were working on the CMAs, and I was working with Kevin Gonzalez, Leo Gonzalez, Megan Cross.
Strong team.
Yeah, we stacked that one. So we were working through that, and I remember we had this. It was like hearts and stuff. So we're making foods out of hearts because it was like for couples date nights or whatever, or for dining date nights. I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, but so we went and shot all these like shrimps that made hearts and fish that made hearts and whatnot. And I just remember we were working on this stuff. We were making the diagrams and everything and the boards, and we couldn't come up with a goddamn line. And that's, as a writer, that's the worst thing in the world. You just can't figure out what the line is. You write these long lines, these beautiful lines, you try to make them work, and it's just not going to work. And I remember Megan Cross, Jeff, and I were all sitting in his office, and I was just like, what about find your other half? Like, and that's a terrible line. Like, it's not clever, it's not well written, it's not smart, but then it's just like, oh, yeah. And I just remember like Jeff being like, that's the one. And Megan was like, that's the one. And then I like threw my booklet down and we're like, yes, let's do it. And that was the line. We all knew that was it. And it's just hilarious that like, that's a memory I really hold true to me, because it's just like, sometimes the simplest things are the best things in the world. Painful creativity or painfully obvious is what a creative director used to tell me. He's like, it has to be so in your face, like so obvious as soon as you see it. And that's what that was. It was painfully obvious. But that's a memory I have there. And we were there till like midnight trying to figure out this damn line. I remember we wrote thousands of lines, and it was just the stupidest line I just threw out in the middle of the night. And then, just, like I said, environment, people, I'm in touch with a few people from Mohawk still. As life goes on, we separate and whatever.
Of course.
But like there's a few people I still talk to every now and then and catch up with, and it's just great seeing them. And just there is a special bond of Mohawk students that just kind of, we've gone through it all together and we grew up together, and it's just always this bond. And even when you meet like someone, I used to work with Ryan McNeil, who is a ex Mohawk grad.
Yes,
and
he was my student.
And I love when you meet an ex Mohawk grad and you're just like, hey buddy, like, and you just shoot the shit. We make fun of Raph. It's great. Like, there's things like that. And there's just a real special bond that I do miss as well.
Now it's the time, after hearing that I will ask you, if you come back there, what kind of suggestions at that time, after seeing several student books on your career so far, people coming to books with you to review and hiring people to work with you, what what are the suggestions you will give to students when it comes to interviews or searching for work or what to put in the portfolios and kind of the first few weeks kind of an attitude they should have when they start their jobs, their careers? Kind of a big chunk of,
Yeah,
yeah, tips
yeah,
and
no,
hints for students. Yeah.
no, it's interesting because there's two ways you can go, and there's no perfect answer to this. Everyone's different.
Yes.
You could be the creative, you could be the junior creative that makes a, you send your portfolio, you make like this beautiful box that might have like a silly joke in it. For example, I remember this Humber student sent us at the beginning of COVID, they sent a mask that said, "You want to see a sick book?" And I was like, "This is like," and then that those people, like when they come in, they're going to be very over the top. Hey, can I help you? And like kind of almost in the way per se, like extremely over the top with a little bit of an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the people that don't have this, they're a little bit too nice about it, and they're a little bit like shy about showing their book. They're a little bit shy about how they came to the idea, talking about their insights and stuff like that. So there's a happy medium of aggressively humble, I guess is what I'd call it.
Okay.
Like, you're trying to help out, but like know your role, kind of step back a little bit. Especially when talking to creative directors, remember what I said, they're very, very busy. They are all over the place every day. So they might be flipping through your book, thinking about 10,000 other things. So respect everyone's time, be respectfully humble, like aggressively humble. You got to push and you got to be fearless, but you have to respect that it's also business and there's lots of professionalism that needs to happen as well. So it's this fine line, and I don't even know how to describe it properly, of getting yourself out there, but don't be a dick at the same time. And that truly, I don't know how to swear on this, but don't be an asshole is like, I remember I heard that from Jeff several thousand times, of just like, be someone that you want to work with, be the person that you want to work with every single day. And that's going to get you further in your career than being the showy person who sends a terrible joke at the beginning of COVID. So
that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and being like, well, you're not getting a job. Like, I just don't like what you're doing. So, anyways, that's it's not a very good answer, but that's kind of the one of just be humble, but be a good person, but also try to fearlessly get your name out there. I don't know how to describe it any better than
cool.
that. Yeah, and then one more thing I would say, and not talk about work with people. That's another one where my final piece of feedback I'd ever give a student is ask someone to go for a beer, talk about work for 5 minutes, and then talk about anything else under the sun. Talk about sports, talk about fashion, talk about whatever. Have a beer with someone where you're not focusing on work, because those relationships are going to be the ones that get you further in your career, when you're not just so focused on work all the time.
That's a great advice. I think it's the first time I hear that advice on the podcast here, and I think it's one of the greatest advice I ever heard, because I think it's important to, even from a beer to a coffee, for
whatever it is,
even a Zoom session, just break it down and
just talk about, sometimes, like, this is going way back in our conversation, but
sure,
when we were focusing on the Young Lion stuff, we weren't stressing, we weren't hyper focused on everything that we were doing, and we weren't putting pressure on ourselves. We were just shooting the shit, and we came up with an idea that worked. Same thing when you're going and having conversations with people and making those connections. When you go to an ad show, or if you go to a networking event, ask how people are doing, talk about work for a little bit, but then ask about, hey, like, you like that car? Did you hear about that thing? Whatever it is, and that will go further. I think in the long run, for me, that worked for me very well, and how I've gotten my connections. Like I said, I have some of the best friends in the world are from advertising. It's because we are friends. We are not just coworkers.
Amazing, Corey. Thank you so much. Cool. I will ask you now to leave your website for portfolio, how students can contact you. If are you able to take a look on some students' books if
Oh,
they
of course,
send you?
yeah. I love looking at work. I love it.
Yes. So if you could send your portfolio website, and I will post it too. But if you say it there, and also how can they contact you, and at the same time, the best way to them to contact you, if it's LinkedIn, I don't know, and
Yeah.
if they also if there's some college listening, what are the website for your
Yeah, that's
new
exactly. Get Mohawk
work?
College
Yes.
to sign a contract with me. Yeah, so you guys can find my work at Corey Hansen, CoryHansen.work. All my work's there. I haven't updated it since I was at Milestone. I have to update it there, but you can see a lot of my work there and everything we kind of talked about today. You can reach me at Cory, James.Hansen, Hansen, @gmail.com. That's my personal email. Feel free to throw me an email whenever you want. I'm more than happy to look at books. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can get me on Facebook. I am available. Feel free to reach out to me however you want. And then if there's a school listening, or if you students want a better student card, check out Paydapp, PAYDAPP.ca. And that's the company I've started. And we're creating the next generation of student cards, which is really wild and fun. And hopefully the students won't have to leave school with $3,000 worth of debt. Or $30,000. $30,000, not $3,000. It's even worse than that. Anyways, that's my plugs.
Thank you so much, Cory. And here's Corey Hansen, class of 2016 alumni. I think this went into, I think it's almost a record, 1 hour 20 minutes. Thank you so yes, thank you so much, Cory, and see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.